This video is brought to you by OddsJam. They have the best tools out there for arbitrage betting, which is like betting both sides of a coin. It's going to come up heads or tails, so you win either way. Every sportsbook has different odds, and OddsJam tracks all these odds so that you know exactly what games to bet and how much to bet so that you will always come out on top completely stress-free by playing both sides. It's not betting so much as it is math. I'm already up over $1,200 after 10 days just using their calculator and doing exactly what it says, not having lost once despite placing hundreds of bets in that time frame. One of those was during the Eagles-Saints game, as I bet both sides on whether Rashid Shaheed would score a touchdown, and came away with a nice profit as a result. And there have been moments that I pounced on arbitrage odds like these, where you can turn a 20% to 30% profit completely stress-free. OddsJam's tool makes everything one click away, and there are hundreds of bets like that every single day based on the sports books available in your area. If you do exactly as they say, you will literally always come out ahead, just as I have. If you sign up now using my promo code JG9, not only do you get a 7-day free trial, and not only does it help the channel out a lot, but you get 25% off your first month. Link in the description. So sign up for OddsJam today, where the odds will be in your favor. September 22nd, 2024. It's week 3 of the NFL season, and we've got a big game under the lights on Sunday Night Football between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Atlanta Falcons down in Georgia. For the Falcons, they're coming off of one of the biggest wins in franchise history, if not one of the most shocking wins in franchise history, after they upset the Philadelphia Eagles on the road on Monday Night Football in an improbable game with an improbable finish. Now, if they can beat the two-time defending champions and win this game under the lights in prime time, then not only would they go to 2-1, but they would be tied for first place in the NFC South, firmly establishing themselves as a legitimate contender for the 2024 season. If the Falcons were going to win this game, then they couldn't get lucky like they did against the Eagles. They not only needed to play well, but they needed to coach the game well and manage the game well. As you're about to find out, however, that did not even come close to happening. But before I break down why this didn't end up happening, if you like learning more about the history of the NFL, from back in the day to dumb decisions that happen today, then this is the place for you, because we have a video every single day about the weird and wacky history of the sport. So if you like that sort of stuff, then be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. With just under 90 seconds left in the game, the bad news for the Falcons is that they find themselves down by 5 points, trailing 22-17 to the Chiefs. The good news is that they have the ball and are near the red zone, so if they can score, they put themselves in a really good position to win the game. Even if they don't score, they have all their timeouts, so as long as they don't waste one, they can still get the ball back and they can still do something. And if they do score, they could kill a ton of time to prevent the Chiefs from having a chance at winning it. Right now, the Falcons absolutely have the upper hand. On 2nd and 12, Kirk Cousins drops back and hits his wideout, Drake London, for a gain of 10 after some nice yards after the catch. Perfect. You've now got 3rd and 2, and the clock is running, and you've got all your timeouts, and you're taking a timeout here? But why? Why the actual heck would you take a timeout here? This guarantees the fact that if you don't score, the game is over. It also guarantees the fact that if you do score, the Chiefs get the ball and have plenty of time to do something with it. Calling a timeout was, quite literally, the worst thing you could do in that scenario. Calling a timeout makes no sense. Raheem Morris, why would you call that timeout? I swear, if this ends up mattering in the end, I'm gonna...
Cousins. Robinson. Stopped in the backfield.
Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something to look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something to look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work, and sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're going to take a look at the mind of Atlanta Falcons head coach Raheem Morris. The Falcons have gotten off to a, shall we say, interesting start to the season, as if it weren't for one of the craziest collapses in the history of the sport, because Nick Sirianni refused to do the smart thing, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, the Falcons would be, and probably should be, 0-3, with Morris' seat potentially being hot, considering the fact that this is his second go-around, and the fact that the Falcons were expected by many to win the division. And this game against the Chiefs was an interesting game that he coached. That's the best way to describe it. It was interesting. Yes, I could have focused on his highly scrutinized decision to go for it on 4th and 5 down by 5 points with 4 minutes left. But I had no problem with that, seeing as the Chiefs were dominating the time of possession battle, and there was a genuine chance that you were never going to touch the ball again, considering how well Kansas City had moved down the field all game long. Yes, I could have focused on that 4th and inches play call where they ran to the outside with Bijan Robinson, which, even though I hated the call and didn't get it for 1 second, as I'm always a believer in the QB sneak and just running up the gut in that spot, I at least see how that could have worked. Because if Tyler Algier picks up his block instead of running like a deer in headlights, Robinson is gone since there's no safety help whatsoever and the outside is wide open. But this, I can't possibly defend this decision. This was absolutely gross clock management on the part of the Falcons in so many ways, and it ended up costing them the game. So with that being said, let's take a look at calling a timeout with 1:03 left and the ball at the 13-yard line when you had all 3 of your timeouts is a really bad idea. If you're Atlanta, there's 2 trains of thought here, and there's 2 ways that you can approach the situation. There's the option that recognizes that on the other side of the field, you have Patrick Mahomes, who is notorious for late-game heroics, and who can march an offense down the field in 13 seconds out of thin air. And there's the option that recognizes that your offense might not be able to punch it into the end zone, and you want to have as many chances as possible to do something and get one final scoring opportunity just in case things go haywire. Personally, this close down by the goal line, I'm in favor of the first option, but I can see why you would go with the second option. In other words, you're either playing the clock to prevent the Chiefs from getting the ball, or you're playing for an extra possession if this one doesn't work out. And because you're in the red zone and you're at the 13-yard line, you can see the end zone, which means that you can see the finite ending to the drive. You only have 4 downs to get 10 yards, and theoretically, you could have a 1st and 10 situation where the first down line is the half-yard line, but for all intents and purposes, if you convert on this sequence, you're going to have a maximum of 4 plays left. And that means that after you get the first down, if you get the first down at all, that you'll have 4 plays until the Chiefs get to touch the ball again. So I want to show you how stupid it was to call a timeout in this spot if you were trying to do that first option, which was to prevent Mahomes and company from having time to get it back. So you burn your timeout with 1:03 left. Let's say you get the first down, you get down to the 11-yard line. At that point, the Chiefs recognize the situation, and they'll burn a timeout, giving them 2 left. Because at that point, because you call timeout, it ensures the fact that if you don't score on this drive, the game is over, so now there's no reason for the Chiefs not to call timeout. We'll say that run takes 5 seconds, so put it down to 58 seconds on the clock. Now, the Falcons have a new set of downs and 58 seconds to work with in what is, in essence, a goal-to-go situation, and the Chiefs have 2 timeouts left to stop the clock. This pretty much means that there is no scenario where you are not giving the Chiefs the ball back. If you score on 3rd down, the Chiefs are going to have about 43 seconds to get into field goal range of their own, which, as we've seen time and time again, is plenty of time. And if you score on 1st or 2nd down, the Chiefs have even more time to work with. The only way, and I truly mean it, the only way that this could have worked by calling the timeout with 1:03 is if you got stuffed on 3rd down, picked up the first down on 4th down, and then scored on your 4th down attempt, assuming you didn't throw more than 1 incomplete pass on the goal-to-go situation. So you had to be perfect on 4th down for this to work. 2 for 2 with no other conversions. Any other scenario, and the Chiefs have time to march down the field. And you don't want that to happen when Mahomes is on the other side. So calling the timeout made no sense in that regard because you give the Chiefs a chance to get the ball back. But let's say you're not thinking of this sequence as the final drive, and you want to potentially have a second chance to score if things go haywire. You don't really care about the time, you just want to score. Well, in that case, calling the timeout made no sense at all, because now, if you didn't get the first down, the Chiefs could just run the clock out all the way and win the game, either by just kneeling the ball 3 times, or by kneeling it 3 times and then taking an intentional safety on 4th down in their own end zone. And obviously, that's exactly what happened. Which raises the obvious question. What the heck was the purpose of calling timeout there? Either you go quick to the line and move as fast as possible so you have a chance to touch the ball again if things don't work out, while keeping your timeout so that you can get that chance, or you take your time and make sure that this is the last possession no matter what. You screwed yourself over for no reason whatsoever with this timeout, because by calling the timeout, either you guarantee the fact that the Chiefs will have time to touch the ball again and answer, or the fact that you will not get the ball again if you don't score, since the Chiefs can take 40 seconds off the play clock on one of those plays, and there's nothing you can do about it. What Raheem Morris did here was the equivalent of those Disney Channel shows with a classic plot line of needs to be at 2 events at the same time, and the character decides to go back and forth and ends up taking everyone off in the process. This was a worst of both worlds situation, and it just made no sense to call the timeout here. I'll give you an example of what this was like. Suppose you're playing a basketball game, and there's 25 seconds left on the clock, and you're down by 2 points. In that spot, you have 2 options. Try and go quickly to tie it up or take the lead so that if you miss, you have another chance at a possession and have another chance of getting back into it, or hold the ball for the last possession of regulation and try and win it there. Whichever scenario you want to do in that spot is fine. However, imagine that your coach draws up a play where you're instructed to not shoot the ball until there's 8 seconds left, at which point you'll heave it from half court. Well, that doesn't seem to make a ton of sense, does it? You're likely not making the shot, and even if it does go in, you're giving the other team a chance to answer. And in the very likely scenario that it does not go in, the other team can just go to the line and shoot 2 free throws, make it a 2-score game, and end it. In a binary world, where you could have either run the clock and held onto the ball or get more opportunities, you decide to create an alternative third option. And spoiler alert, it did not work out. It backfired quite miserably, and you deserve to lose that game with that horrible clock and timeout management. And you know what's crazy about this game? You know what's crazy about the game between the 2 teams behind me right here at the top? No one, not one reporter after the game, asked Raheem Morris why he took the timeout with 1:03 left. Even though this was the wrong move, and even though this ended up costing the Falcons the game at the end of the day, not one reporter stopped to think to themselves, hey, that was a weird timeout. Why'd you take it? No one popped that question. Were we watching the same game or something? This timeout was the worst decision Morris made. Yeah, the 4th down calls were questionable to some extent, but this was the one that really should have been scrutinized, and no one asked him the question about why he did it, even though it was the wrong move. I just don't get it. So what do we learn from all of this? When you try to make everyone happy, you make no one happy. If you want to play the clock game and force the opposition to not have a chance of getting the ball back, then call the game like that. If you want to give yourself some margin for error and give yourself a second chance if things don't work out the first time, then call the game like that. But don't try and call it both ways. Don't try and call it in a way where you don't get the ball back if you screw up, but you give the ball back to the opposition with plenty of time left if you don't. Sometimes, if there's 2 options, then there's only 2 options, and there's no need for you to create a third out of thin air when it doesn't exist, and doesn't exist for a reason, I might add. And if you're going to make a boneheaded move like this, the absolute last team you can do it against is the 2-time defending champions and one of the greatest dynasties in the history of the sport. Because when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.